Hello, in this video I want to show you a few of my recent bullet games that I played online. Cause those games are mine, it would be easier for me to explain you the strategies, the ideas behind the scenes, and I believe that would be definitely useful for you to learn how chess players are making decisions. I'm 2650 rated in bullet, so the games should be interesting. Let's start right now. In the first game I played as white, and the opening was already interesting, c4 f5, Dutch. I decided to turn a bit from the main theory because bullet games it's only 1 minute for me, 1 minute for my opponent, so we have a side to play. Bishop goes b4, rook goes to c1. I decided as this a quick game just not to double my pawns. I want to take with the rook. That was my idea. Castle a3, takes, d6. And this position like a first critical one in this game, because normally I have a good move e3 to play right now, then I can follow up the development like bishop d3, knight d2 and so on. But I decided to make some spice and use an interesting idea I bet you will like, g4. This is pretty typical for such pawn structures, an interesting idea. For sure computer doesn't like it and gives blacks a small advantage, but that's very interesting for us. The general point is on f takes g4, I want to play h3. And my dream is to reach the position like this, because now I'm having two rooks playing the h line, and that's very dangerous for black. Like after h6, queen goes d3, I'm almost like checkmated, because if you will capture the bishop, I have queen g6 unfortunately. Now I can keep the king, he can't let out, and we will do rook h8 checkmate. So f takes g4 looks pretty strange for black, and in this game black played h6. So I decided to keep the tension with bishop goes to h4, and here is an interesting moment, because the first line of computer is to play g5, which already looks scary for black, bishop g3, and for example let's analyze the f4 move right now. In this position, black's doing really dangerous from the king, and we need to keep up this position in a weird style. Something like this can happen. Takes, rook takes g3, I don't know, for example, knight goes to c6, queen goes to d3. We want to play queen g6 now, so queen e7 is very logical to have queen g7 to block it, and like takes, rook h3. Again, we linked our rooks and rook h8 is coming up, so that's why queen g7, and white can play something like knight f3 here, following rook h6, rook g6 with some ideas like this. Very interesting position. So we definitely have a compensation for the piece because black has lack of development and the bad king on g8. But still, this is very sharp and complicated. I can't say you what would be the result. That's why it's also interesting to play this game, right? You never know what can happen. So returning back, even after bishop g3 in this line, the computer best is to play knight e4, rook e3, d5. So I can't definitely say you the assessment of this and how it's basically possible, because he goes something like this. He takes f4, takes on e4, he takes here, rook f5, knight c6 and e3. That is the main line of computer. That's really weird and really crazy, and that shows us how the chess are rich, right? So basically this position could be very interesting in a way of this, for example, takes, I don't know, takes. So what do we have now is that the king is still weak, and I will take the white side, to be honest, to play, because according to the computer black to need to play only moves like d4 in this position. That is already tough to explain why this is the best from the human side, I mean. So that was behind the scenes, but that was interesting. For sure, I didn't calculate all of this when I played bishop h4. I saw that in the case of g5, bishop goes g3, f4, h4, we have a kind of a weird position. No one knows what happens, but I know that my purpose is the king, I'm attacking, and in the bullet games with a minimal time set, it's completely easier to attack than to defend. That was my idea, basically. But my opponent decided to take on g4 in this case. So after all, I played h3, very logical, and again black has a choice, but he decided to go g3, which looks logical, right? We already recapped g takes h3 in the previous lines. I played rook takes g3, and this position is very convenient for white. We have an attack. Let's see how it happens then. Knight c6, knight f3. Never forget about the development. I have the understanding that without the pieces, I won't checkmate this king. I want to bring my rook and have a tangent, have an attack. That's also my idea. So queen goes e8, rook goes g1, and here black decided to play g5. Unfortunately, their position is already bad, like on knight h5, protecting g7, I can play rook g6, and I'm keeping the serious initiative. But anyway, it was better than g5, because to make your king such a weak in this position is too much. Basically, I was able to play knight takes g5 immediately. That's definitely winning as well. But bullet game is a bullet game. I decided to play e3 firstly. I had the understanding that I every time can sacrifice, and I wanted just in case to have more pieces and maybe link the queen somewhere. That's the point. Knight goes to e4. Again, I was able to play knight g5. Such line like knight g3, rook g3, takes. Everything is forced. Queen g4, following rook h5, winning the queen and almost checkmating, because then my bishop will appear on d3. The king is too weak here. That's absolutely winning for white. That was possible, definitely. But I play rook g4, trying to save the rook and counter the knight. d5, bishop goes d3. So my idea was to finish the development as soon as I can to finally checkmate. Black played queen h5. I need to say that black's position is absolutely losing. Takes. Again, the easiest way for white is to take on g5. That's obvious. But I would be honest, I had 30 seconds or around this on the clocks. I was scared that at some moment black can play this and take the rook, so I played knight e5. My idea was that I'm blocking this bishop for the entire game, and I definitely will win with the attack. I didn't want to calculate to spend time, so that's why I relied on positional stuff. So takes. Black played b6, but this position after rook g5 is absolutely winning. So queen g5 I can take with the bishop, but my opponent took with the pawn. I played queen h5, and in this position finally he resigned, because it's like 5 moves away from the checkmate we are. So interesting game in which I think I made an interesting opening decision with g4, and I tried to explain you which feelings I had during the game and what were my ideas. I hope that you enjoyed it. Don't forget to comment which game would be best, this one or second one, because now we're moving to the second game. The second game I also played as white, and I also want to start from the beginning because the opening I believe was interesting. So black decided to go away from the main theoretical issues, but I love the structures, to be honest, as white. So I never want to put my pawn on c4 in these structures if I'm able to play knight c3 following e4, and you will see in this game why I appreciate this so much. e4, knight e7, and I played bishop b5. That's the typical idea, kind of my favorite maneuver. The idea is after bishop d7, same I will do on the knight d7, by the way, I'm playing a4. The point of the position that if you will capture, I can capture with the pawn, and now the a line is open, my rook is playing, and the a7 is the weakness, and I'm controlling a better space. But in case of the a6, how black played, I'm playing bishop e2 back, and now black can forget about b5, the typical idea for this pawn structure. The bishop on d7 placed badly, he restricts the knight to go to d7, and basically after like g6, knight f3, the best for black is to play bishop g4, trying to have an exchange, but I for sure will go knight d2. I'm ready for the bishop exchange, but I want to save my knight with the purpose to go on c4 and to have an idea to attack the d6, right? So that's my main idea in general, to remove the knight to the key square c4, where he is very, very active. More or less the same I made in the game, so let's return back. My opponent played bishop g7. Don't forget it's a bullet game, right? So only 1 minute per each other. f5, knight goes c4. Definitely I'm having an advantage here. My knight is very well placed. I'm attacking the pawn. I can fix the structure whenever I want, and so on. Black played queen c7, which computer don't like, and here I skipped the opportunity to play f4. For sure, this typical central breakthrough after e takes e4, bishop takes e4, because of the weakness on d6, gives a decisive advantage for white. But I played a5, which I made quickly to make a time economy. I spent only 6 seconds due to this moment, and yeah, I wanted to keep it fast, and I made a useful move. f4, and here I used a very typical strategy, bishop g4. It's good to trade white squared bishops in this position, because later on the e6 point could be a weakness somewhere. So black decided to play h5, I decided to take, and here I made what's computer doesn't like, but still I think from the human side it looks interesting, especially in the bullet game. Computer mostly loves to play knight e4 and fix on b6, and then bring the rook out from the a3, which is very logical. As well, white can pay attention to play at some moment bishop d2 following b4, a typical idea which I definitely will use in the game later on. But I play g4. That's also kind of a typical idea for the King's Indian. My point is that I want to lock up the situation. The idea for me is something like this. When I basically can stop this bishop, he's completely restricted. And my hands would be absolutely free to play on the queen side with b4, because black has no longer any counterplay on the king side. That's the strategical nature of this move. For sure, like if black takes on here, I can take there, and this f line goes well for me. I also can play bishop g5 in the future, so I believe this position should be better for white. Black decided to play h takes, queen takes, king goes h7. And here we are drafting to the moment where I made a curious mistake. So for sure it's easy win. Check here, queen e7. But don't punish me too hard, that's a bullet game. I spent few seconds for queen h3, suddenly, bishop h6, and king h1. So yeah, that's a normal way for the bullet games, unfortunately, to blunder such easy moves. My point of view that I want to make my king safe, and maybe I want to use the g line in the future attack, and I'm keeping my eye on e6 square to attack d6 and the king at the same time by my queen. So I have a logic at least. f3, trying to link my pawn structure, rook h8, rook g1, king g7, queen g2. Yeah, I went back with the queen just to avoid any tension with the rook, that's the idea. King f7, knight a4. My point was that I still want to have the b6 square, and yeah, I'm keeping my eye on the queen side as well. Computer doesn't like this move. He thinks that g5 now gives black a good counter, but my opponent played bishop g7. I played knight b6, knight takes b6, a takes b6. Now my pawn is in a good position. I fixed the b7, so I was very well with my position. Queen d7, bishop goes to d2. Now my idea that I want to play b4. I had 36 seconds on the clocks here. My opponent had 17 seconds. So we're both more than 2600 rated players. Seems that the game should be on a high quality. I hope so. So in this position, my opponent made a logical mistake. For sure, he needs to play g5. The idea is to transpose the knight and have an attack. For sure, it's very dangerous for me to take because of rook g6 and the queen is trapped. g5 is pretty obvious move in my vision, because you need to have a way for the knight, right? And you need to keep eye on g4. Structurally, it's very logical for black to make a break for like g4 here. Besides, I'm doing b4. So my opponent played knight g8, and here I skipped the opportunity to play bishop takes e4, which is the combination. The idea on e takes e4, I have e5, and you can't take d5 because of knight e5 with the fork, right? And if black's trying to take here with the rook, I have queen takes g6, king f8, queen takes d6, queen takes d6, knight takes d6. And then I'm taking here, and my pawn could be promoted. That's basically not such an easy tactics, I believe, for the bullet, but still I need to manage this. But I played queen g4. My idea was that I would be very good in the endgame, because in the endgame my king can't be checkmated. I would be completely secure, but besides I have an active gameplay on the queen side. And my opponent decided to trade the queens, which I think is a serious mistake. For sure he needs to go out, I don't know, queen b5 for example, trying to collect some attacking chances. But after b3 I believe I'm still better in this position. So after queen takes g4, rook takes g4, yeah, this endgame I'm considered as the almost the winning for white. Black has no counter on the king side. The bishop on g7 is very bad due to the structure, and I'm having b4 idea, and the b7 is the weakness. So I won this pretty quickly, like knight g8, b4, for sure on takes I can take, and then I will take on d6. That's the main idea, to make this weakness naked. Knight e7, takes, rook a5. Yeah, very easy. I'm just coming to take, so that's an easy decision. The best was rook c8, I believe, but I can play maybe knight e5 immediately, maybe bishop c3 firstly, to improve the straight which could be harder than execution because I will still take on e5, but depends with which piece that would be. So my opponent played king e8. He had 5 seconds. I had 30 seconds. And the game over just like in a few moves. Check. Here, bishop b4. Here, rook b7. And after knight b6, rook b6. With the 3 seconds on the clock. Besides, I have 25. My opponent resigned for sure, like after takes. I'm having a decisive material advantage, and that's absolutely winning. So again, that was an interesting game and an interesting structure. I tried to use a lot of typical ideas from this bishop g4, g4, knight c4, till to the going to the end game in a such way. I believe that you enjoyed both games. I hope so, at least. And don't forget to type in the comments which game you love more. And I hope that you learned a lot of new ideas. If you like this format, I will continue with this. And see you soon on my next episodes. Thanks for your subscription, for your like, and for your comments. See you soon.